so today I want to bring together some of the things that I've been working on with my executive coaching clients. I just had a session yesterday with one client who came into the office for a 4-hour strategy session to prepare herself and her team for the next year. And one of the key things that we needed to talk about was how to lead through change. We already know that we're going through immense change. This may look like, because of the political and economic landscape, change is happening in your organization. It may be that there's change because there's been some organizational shifts, some structural shifts, right? It may also be because you've recently been promoted. You got a new job. One person that I am going to begin working with really soon, she is in a transition plan as the new executive director of an organization. These things are amazing. Sometimes change is delightful and joyful and fun, like her goal of being able to lead an organization, right? And sometimes change comes because there are environmental factors, political economic factors, things that are creating shifts and change. Here's what we know about change. Whether it's something that you desire to be in or whether it's something that is a little bit challenging, and you're having to move through it, change still creates a bit of destabilization, not only for your team and for the organization, but for you as the leader. And so I wanted to do some grounding here for the next few minutes that we have together and just give some small, but hopefully really powerful tips to help you move forward in how to lead through change. So I'm going to look down at my notes to make sure that I stay on target and I use your time well. The reason why I'm also doing this is because, so today we're going to talk about change. We'll talk about a couple other topics tomorrow, one other topic tomorrow, and then one other topic the next day. But I'm also doing this because I noticed that a lot of the people that I work with have ascended and are ascending to various levels of leadership, and they've done this because they've demonstrated their skill, their ability, their commitment. And so they've been promoted or they've gone after new roles and they've been able to be hired, even an intense job, kind of challenging job climate. They're still being hired. They're getting these roles. But here's the thing. Often they're in a position where they've not been well trained or trained at all for the work that they're going into. Right. And so that's not the actual, like the mechanics of the work, but the leadership of the work. So they know how to do the content of the work. It is the leadership parts of the work, how to manage people, how to make decision making at this new level, how to, manage conflict at this level, how to motivate or coach teams through change at this new level. So these can be things that are challenging. And what happens is people are often learning on the go or they're learning on the fly. So they're learning while they're doing. And that can be a space for missteps in, people missteps. Right. And those can be kind of challenging to recover from when you maybe have had conflict or mismanaged a direct report or not managed a situation very well with them, or communicated very well with them around expectations and even praise and encouragement. Right. So my goal here is to give some insights into when you've not been trained into a role, how can we start to gain some of the tools and the techniques to move forward and not be learning so much on the fly and on the go, but have some things to in our back pocket that we can pull from. And so I want us to stop winging it and to have some tools. Okay. So leading through change in 2025, we know that there is going to be, if there has not been already, downsizing, perhaps, shifts in team structures, in the organizational chart, new roles. So people being placed in new seats and maybe even you being in a new role, new systems or programs or processes in your organization, right? So when there's, maybe efficiencies are coming and things are being shifted around as to how you do routine tasks, that creates some disruption and some change. And also there can just be other series of pivots in your company or organization's direction. And so in that process, what's changing? You are changing. The environment is changing. The politics is changing. I know we don't like to talk about that a whole lot. The politics is changing. The culture and the norms are changing. And here's the thing, some of these shifts and your team. So I want to put that as well, because environment is one thing, but team is also another one. So you've got these major kind of shifts happening that you as the leader have to be able to manage yourself well, right? The leader should be self-aware, but then also we need to be able to lead through change in these other areas: environment, political changes in your organization, cultural norms shifting in your organization. So my few tips that I want to share today, I want to start with, how do you stabilize yourself, the person and the leader, right? And I don't usually tend to say we kind of bifurcate the person, but I want to speak to these a little bit separately, because I believe that you, the person, the individual, has to be well, and you have to have your kind of core ways and practices of managing through change, so that then you can be a good leader of others through change. And so some of this starts with personal grounding practices, right? So yesterday, I had a session with a client, and some consistent things came up that I see when people are transitioning into either new roles or heightened responsibility. Even if you've been successful, and even if you have been effective at previous roles, when things start to ratchet up in terms of responsibility, it means that sometimes your old systems and practices that you have used to do well no longer work in the same ways. So let me give an example. It may be that the way that you organize and structure your day worked for where you were last month, last 2-3 months, but no longer really work for you for where you're going. So it can seem like a simple thing to say, okay, I'm just going to wake up a little earlier. I'm going to exercise a little bit earlier, or I am going to, make these kind of shifts in your day, but they do require a bit of habit change and first mindset shift. And so having these personal grounding practices, assessing them to see, where do I need to make shifts in order to not react, but respond to these new responsibilities in this new environment, right? And to my new role. So this may look like, and I'm just going to run through a few examples, because again, it's the small things that will be the things that really destabilize you. It is, for example, maybe rushing to fight fires is what you are known to do, right? You're rushing to fight fires versus having something of a decision-making matrix as to how you allocate your time, energy, and resources in decision-making. Something as simple as, and it really can be a challenge, checking email at the first thing in the morning, right? Checking email as soon as you wake up or thereafter. It can set your day off in a whole direction that's not good for you. Not having a set morning practice, what you do and what you need to do to ground in the morning. This does not have to be lengthy, but it does need to be effective. Right? So for some of my clients, it looks like they have to work out in the mornings. And sometimes workout can look like going to a gym. It can look like, nope, I just need to do walks in my neighborhood, whatever works for you, but knowing what will set your day well, so that you are commanding your day, and your day is not being commanded by the fires that you're fighting in your inbox, or the things that you are, kind of responding to in your week. Not having a consistent practice for planning for your week. You cannot, at this new stage of leadership and leading through change, be sort of passive in how you plan for your week and for yourself and your team. I tend to recommend Sunday evenings or Sunday afternoons before your work week starts to actually have some time to look at strategically, where are we going this week that ladders up into our goals. This is not something that typically at a leadership level you can do on a day-to-day basis for heavy planning. You need to be doing this ahead of time so that you're ahead of the game, ahead of your reports, your direct reports, and having a sense of where you're going. Now, you can layer in daily check-ins with that plan that you set for the week, but your heavy planning really should be done when you have a bit more clearer schedule and a bit more mind to do so. Some people do this like maybe Friday at the end of the workday, they assess the week and they do that, or I tend to recommend Sunday after you've had a little bit of downtime in some way from the weekend and kind of preparing then for the week. So these are just some examples of having your own personal grounding practices as a leader. And I want to say, when planning and when changing habits, it does take some time. These aren't just things you want to just run through, or you can expect yourself to just change overnight because they make sense to do, right? These things require a little bit of habit building and a little bit of process. And so that's some of the things that I did with my client yesterday, was set up, as she said, she's like, I feel like I came out with a blueprint, walking through this 4-hour session. This is just one piece of what we did, but it gave her a blueprint for how to ground in herself, in her day, her week, and her personal practices. And let's get real practical here as well, right? So those personal practices, the ones I just mentioned, sounded like morning routines, exercise, health, wellness, but it also included things that allowed her to make shifts to attend to things that she needed to do or wanted to do at home. So part of her responsibility at home was, some of the caretaking or things that happen in the home. Well, we needed to look at, do you need some strategic support in those areas? Perhaps it's time that you move into having meal delivery service or chef prepared, pre-prepared meals. Or maybe it's time to have a dog sitter that comes in and helps a little bit more as your schedule is busier. You're out more at community events, working with clients more, you're traveling more for work, and you want to make sure that that part of your home is taken care of, right? For some people, it's going to be additional childcare or having some support there. For others, if you're like me, it's having additional pet support. None of these things are too small. And that's really what I want to emphasize here, because sometimes it's the small things that can keep us with friction in our everyday, that keep us from being able to be focused and motivated and energized leaders for our teams and the work that we do. So I want to shift then to what are some things that can help you to lead through change in 2025. So we talked about stabilizing yourself as the person, right? Having your routine set so that you are less reactive and more intentional. But then the other piece is taking a look at the leadership competencies that you need for this new season of change. Right? So it may be that you need to sharpen your decision-making skills, for example. Perhaps you don't have the luxury of taking as much time to make decisions. Or perhaps you need to be able to make decisions at a higher level where your decision making is scrutinized in a different way than it has been in the past. There may be some things in your leadership competencies that need to shift so that you can confidently manage the new ways that you have to move forward, right? So in this example, decision making that's a bit more high stakes and high level. Leadership confidence. Right? Leadership confidence. This is not an arbitrary thing. This is not just because I'm in a new seat, in a new role, and I've been sort of promoted that I automatically come with confidence. No, this is going to come from self-awareness and grounding in your practices, and grounding also in knowing that the role that you have, you've been put there because you can do it. Now the work is to develop into the skills that are needed to be able to do the work. Right? Other competencies that are needed at being able to lead through change is being clear for yourself and your team about where you are going. This looks like being able to set vision. Right? That's the difference between being a manager and a leader. There may be some kind of management tactics that are inside of leadership, but leadership is differentiated by being able to set vision and remind and galvanize people around this vision. Where are we going? Right? Where are we going as a team, as a company, as an organization with this new project? Where are we going? And what does it look like once we've gotten there? Right? So vision isn't just the tactics and the how. Vision is actually casting out for people what the future and the preferred future looks like. This is a key skill of leaders. This is something that all leaders need to be able to do, and also know that it is not something that's just done once. This is something that is done repeatedly. Your team needs to hear from you. They need to know where you're going, especially when things get tough. Right? Especially when they're working really hard and they're not sure if the work through the change period is actually paying off or getting to the results that you all want. They need you to be the chief reminding officer. Okay. The chief vision setter and the chief reminding officer around where we're going. And so that's clarity in there and vision setting is in there. And then finally, I'll say flexibility and adaptability. There's many leadership competencies that we can work through. I would encourage you even to look at your own organization and your role and ask what is needed in this new space that I am going to or that I'm in so that I can be successful for myself and for others that I lead. Right. And so I'll kind of round this out today and just share again. I'm doing this because I want people who are mission driven leaders, results oriented leaders to be able to bring those two things together, head and heart, to have the skills that are needed to move through leadership responsibilities in the future. So as you are moving through the professional setting and the workplace setting in 2025, there may be some new things that are required for you to grow and for you to meet the challenge of what is coming, right? And to meet the opportunities even that may be coming in your work setting. And so this leading through change is the first part. And I would like to leave you with this idea of even looking at your own grounding practices. Right? What are some things that you may need to perfect for yourself so that you can be grounded as a leader and that you can be grounded and less reactive and more intentional? And then second, as I said, looking at those leadership competencies. This is one of the things that we're doing. I have the up-level leadership mastermind that starts in January. I am inviting people to join me, professionals who are mission driven, heart centered, to join me in January. If you are going through a bit of organizational change, personal, professional change, and you want to be prepared to take on this new level of responsibility that's required. And maybe for you, it's not new because you have a new position or a new role, but you know that you've kind of been floundering a bit with the things that you've been doing and how you've been kind of making it through. Maybe your practices that you've had were good for before, but they're not going to serve you moving forward. I'm inviting you to join Up-Level Leadership Mastermind. In this mastermind, we're going to be together for 6 weeks. It's 1 hour for 6 consecutive weeks. And we're going to walk through one of my favorite books that I work with my executive coaching clients that I tend to work with for months or do strategy sessions like the one I did yesterday. This is one of my core tools, and I want to introduce it to you and walk through this book together. So it's a mastermind kind of book club. And we're going to gather as a community of leaders to walk through some of the key things that you're going to need for 2025 to boost your leadership skills, to strengthen your leadership skills in 2025 at the start of the year. So one, you're not doing this alone. You're not kind of self-pacing yourself, but you're coming into a set community, into a set kind of structure for learning and for growing. Leaders are learners. Consistently and always, leaders are learners. So I invite you to join me in Up-Level Mastermind Book Club. We're going to have an awesome time. And I'll also put some details below. But I'd love to hear, in addition to kind of looking at the book club, how are you going to use some of the things that we talked about today, either your personal grounding practices or improving your leadership competencies? Whether you join us at Up-Level Mastermind Book Club or you're doing some of this work on your own, I want to see you taking action. So thanks so much. And I'll see you here tomorrow about the same time, 12 noon, for another next step in how to prepare for your leadership in 2025. Thanks so much.